Okay, welcome back. It is early May, 1868. We left off then in late April with the resumption of hostilities between us and the Austrians. We kind of arranged our initial force deployments and a broad plan with three armies comprising sort of Army Group West, if you like, and three armies which we are in the process of assembling in the East. The Eastern Group will look to secure the south bank of the Danube, take Bucharest, and then conduct a campaign, much like the last conflict, into Transylvania, ultimately with a view to link up with Army Group West. Now, the force in the West will be split because of the natural division that sort of Zagreb or Croatia creates. So our best offensive commander, Mehmed Ali, who is kind of en route to Pristina or Kosovo, is going to be conducting a campaign to secure the Dalmatian coastline. That's the first part of this campaign. Once he gets as far north as Fiume, two commands are going to split off in the Hussein Avni and Ahmed Pasha, and they will conduct a campaign over the Sava, through Slavonia and over the Drava into central Hungary. Ahmed Pasha is going to screen on the right whilst Hussein Avni moves up and links up with Mehmed Ali at Vienna. That's the plan, and then we'll look to begin to consolidate the eastern part of the country and link up with Ahmed Pasha on the Danube with Army Group East. So, that's the plan. In the last fortnight, the Austrians have done nothing. None of their forces have even attempted to move. I suspected they might move from Montenegro into Albania. That has not come to pass. They've made no incursions into our territory. And there have been no actions, no engagements of any kind. The only thing that I have noticed is that in the last fortnight, they've gone from about 168, I think it was, 164 raw combat power for their army to 194. It's a fairly significant jump. Now, raw combat power, what it really represents in the broadest possible sense is the kind of accumulated firepower of all of your units. That can include garrison forces and this kind of thing. And firepower does dramatically climb with technology. The move from kind of muzzle loaders to breech loaders increases range, which gives soldiers an opportunity to get more rounds off, but also bolt actions, breech loaders. You can also just have a much greater rate of fire anyway. New kinds of artillery guns. We've got iron muzzle loaders at the moment, give us slightly kind of, and also explosive shells. Also give us more firepower. To give an idea as to how firepower has climbed for us, the first army command that we ever assembled, which is now Mehmed Ali's force, had a raw combat power of about 1,200. Combat power now, keeping in mind that it's somewhat disorganized because of movement in difficult weather, is about between 2,500 and 3,000. So it has it's more than doubled in the last 18 years because of the technological and also organization developments in our army. Now, combat power does come up against other kinds of things. You will note that in the second Austrian conflict, they had a combat power that's about, range between 3 and 5 times our combat power. Doesn't mean to say they had an army that was 3 to 5 times our size. They had breech loaders way before we did. So they probably had an army that was maybe twice the size of our army, or maybe 3 times, I don't know, maybe 2.5 times. But their combat power created the impression of a much larger army. And combat power is not everything, as we've discovered. Creative generals with kind of very good stats could really make all the difference. Good concrete examples, which I've used in a previous video, is the kind of Franco-Prussian War, where, contrary to popular belief, the Prussians did not have some kind of tremendous advantage. They had better artillery than the French, but I don't think that was the kind of I don't think that was the thing that really clutched it for them. The French had the Chassepot rifle, they had a higher rate of fire, increased range, all this kind of thing, but Prussian officers were able to use foliage, terrain, aggressive tactics to kind of close on their opponent to mitigate the firepower advantage their opponent had, and then rely on things like melee combat, which is really what's kind of held us in good stead. We don't really have to do that as much now. We have the same kind of technological basis as the Austrians through huge amounts of state investment in research and development. That said, the Austrians still have nearly twice the combat power of us, so that would suggest that probably they're fielding a lot of reserve formations very, very quickly, drafting men into service, and yeah, I mean, it is it's going to be a real fight, this one. It's not going to be as hard as previous wars in some ways, but I think we should be able to put it off. We've got really experienced soldiers, really experienced commanders. So anyway, without further ado, Mehmed Ali's marching for Salonika. It's taken longer than expected, so he's going to be 9 days away from Kosovo. Ahmed Pasha, we're moving up then from Niš to Zvornik. We wanted to sit him in Niš last term because there was a kind of thought that the Austrians might move round and pinch the rail line access to Sarajevo. That was a problem because we were reinforcing Sarajevo garrison with 2 divisions of fortress troops plus 2 regiments or 2 batteries of emplaced artillery. Those forces arrived, but I wanted to sit Ahmed Pasha on an offensive posture in Niš to kind of scotch any attempt to basically break our lines of communication to Sarajevo. That's been dealt with. He can now move north to Zvornik and hold a position there to conduct support throughout the beginning of our Dalmatian campaign, which will be an offensive into Montenegro. In terms of the East, Army Group East, Bayezid Pasha then moves south from Constanza. He's sitting at Varna. He is activated. I don't think we're going to do anything just yet. We're going to hold him in position at Varna. We are going to wait for other forces to begin to move into place. We moved the Eastern commander, Ahmed Mukhtar Pasha. He didn't really actually have a command in the East, but we sat him there because it occurred to me that if Russia declared war, having a really, really solid defensive commander located in Kars could be quite important in terms of buying us time. I mean, he is, emplaced artillery, this kind of, large kind of fortresses. This stuff is the furniture of home for Ahmed Mukhtar, who is a defensive engineer. He's a good particular strategist. He's quite cautious, so not as effective in an offensive role, but he would have been perfect holding a city for 6 months to a year to buy us time. As it is, I think we could do with him now. He's a fairly new 3-star general. He's an interesting character, actually, Ahmed Mukhtar. He's the real kind of star of the 1850s was Omar Pasha. I was aware that he existed, but I didn't really know very much about him. I knew that he was from Serbia and he'd been in the Austrian army, this kind of thing, but I didn't know much about his terms of service. Ahmed Mukhtar Pasha I'm a little bit more aware of, because he was Grand Vizier, I think, around the time of the First World War. He was a significant political figure later on in his life. He must have been very young, I reckon, around this time, because I think he was born in the late 1830s. So he was a kind of a child or an adolescent at the time this campaign began, but he also received his commission at a very young age as a kind of lieutenant general. He became a pasha in his late 20s, So I think he's probably not yet, he's maybe just around 30 years old or something like this. Very, very young kind of officer, and a real kind of, he's like the distilled essence of the last generation of Ottoman commanders. He dies in 1919 as the empire's kind of crumbling around him, really, and he was a rare creature in the late Ottoman Empire, in that he was broadly revered by all kind of political camps. He didn't have much in the way of enemies. He was a well-liked kind of figure. An example of that is in the early Turkish Republic. Bear in mind that at the beginning of the Turkish Republic, there was a real rejection of everything Ottoman. It's not like Erdogan's Turkey now, where there's this sort of tendency to kind of ape Ottoman traditions and things like that. The early Turkish Republic under Mustafa Kemal Ataturk really rejected a lot of this stuff. And yet, in the 1920s, one of the first stamps that they printed was a stamp with Ahmed Mukhtar Pasha's image on it, which is quite interesting. He was quite a revered figure. He was from Bursa originally. I think it's from Bursa or Izmit. I think it was Bursa. His father was a merchant there. And, quite a fascinating character, actually. Quite a sort of... I'm not sure as a young man. I mean, I guess this is an image of him as a fairly young man. But if you find any kind of photographs of him around the time of the First World War, pretty serious looking character. I recommend giving him a Google. But anyway, he's going to be in command of one of the 3 armies, along with Bayezid Pasha and Abdul Karim Nadir. He was 27 days. Now, we are at the beginning of the war season, the campaigning season. It's early May. That said, weather is still a little bit dicey in northern Bulgaria with some fairly heavy rain. Also some difficult weather in central Anatolia, which has delayed Abdul Karim Nadir, so he's going to be a good couple of weeks still before he gets to Rumelia. And then when he gets there, he's going to need probably a fortnight at least to recover his force. There is a temptation to break his force down, move it via rail, but to tell you the truth, by the time we move, because we only have access to a certain amount of kind of stock really in terms of locomotives and carriages and this kind of thing, by the time we actually move this army of a little under 100,000 in segments, he would have already marched there. You know, it's not a great distance, so we're going to keep him on foot, I think. Looked up Ahmed Muhtar's 5 days from Rumelia. We'll keep Bayezid Pasha in place. There's nothing really to do in the short term militarily. We're going to sit tight. We're going to get our force concentration. If the Austrians don't want to do anything as our opening play, that's fine. You know, we'll absolutely welcome that. And that should give us the time to get our forces in place and prepare for a summer campaign. If we play our cards right here and kind of get everything kind of moved into position now, we should be able to launch our campaign in early to late June, I would say. We can move both kind of army sort of groups, if you like, Army Group East and West, simultaneously, and we might even be able to secure the Dalmatian coastline by the end of July. We could probably have this done in one campaigning season, if it kind of goes to plan. Of course, everything in war is contingent, that may not happen, there's lots of variables, but if we can get Vienna occupied by October, November, that would be an outstanding kind of, that's really what we're aiming for. It may not happen. If it doesn't, we'll make the kind of necessary measures that we need to take throughout the winter for a more protracted campaign, but that's what we're aiming for anyway. Beyond that, nothing else to report. The economy is fairly stable. Exports have dropped off slightly. That's to be expected. We actually took an awful lot of our kind of manufactured goods inventory, ploughed that into kind of armaments in the last term to begin the construction of new units. We're going to continue doing that. One thing that I have done is using the colonial ministry is I've sent merchants to Kuwait, which is rather curious because Kuwait already has a trade post. We can't get anything out of it really in terms of colonial penetration. It's already a colony that has 65% colonial penetration. The reason I'm doing that is because we have railroads in Kuwait and we have diamond mines, and yet the output is only 3. And if you look at overall product, if you look at the pop-up, the overall efficiency is very low. Overall productivity is about 40%. The thing that's dragging it down is manpower efficiency. If you look at this area here, you can see that there's a shortage of certain kinds of classes, and it looks to be kind of workers, middle class, so clerks, that sort of thing, to run the mines. And I thought, well, how am I going to kind of attract these people to Kuwait? It's very remote. I think development. It's 42% development. One of the kind of byproducts of sending merchants is it can drive development up. It's, I think, one of the only mechanisms beyond building roads, which we already did. It's one of the only things that we have of driving development up. So I'm going to continuously play colonial merchants in Kuwait. It's at 42% now. It's May 1868. Let's see where we can get it to between now and say 1870. If there's a reasonable kind of, we can get up to sort of 45, 50. That suggests that continuously playing merchants in one region for its secondary purpose might be a worthwhile exercise. If we can raise development enough, I'm hoping it's going to attract settlers into Kuwait. Other factions, European factions, more Western European factions, they do have more kinds of instruments that they can use. They can actually send immigrants directly. We've got a slightly old-fashioned kind of colonial ministry with a limited suite, really, in terms of the things that we can do. That's fairly realistic. I don't have a problem with that. The Ottoman Empire has, even with its modernization, in some ways it has some antiquated structures, and that's well reflected. But we're going to see if we can raise the level of development in Kuwait and see if that has an impact. So 40% overall productivity. If we can bring development up to, say, 70%, and if anyone's aware of any other means, by the way, this has never actually factored in my thinking before, any other measures that we have of raising the development. We already have railroads there, then, yeah, by all means, let me know. I'd be interested to know, and we'll definitely do that. I've looked through all the different structures and buildings in the economy tab. I've looked through the colonial things, and yet, like I say, it seems to me that beyond road networks, which we already built, and you can't continuously build those, colonial merchants is the only thing. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. And if it does work, we can use that as a blueprint then, because these areas, Qatar, Dubai, it's going to be even worse. I'm not even going to bother upgrading them because it's a huge amount of expense. And I mean, there are literally no, like in Dubai, there are no workers at all. There are no workers or clerks. There's basically peasants and servile slaves. So the Ottoman Empire doesn't abolish slavery, incidentally. So yeah, just workers and slaves. We have one unit, whatever that is, maybe 1,000 workers, I think, in Qatar. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if we can kind of see if that changes over time. That's pretty much it. Beyond that, there's nothing else to report. Fleet is on its way back. I've docked it in. I'm going to dock it in Aden temporarily, because weather is particularly tough at the moment in the Red Sea. 30 days for the last railroad construction in Aden, and 3 turns before we declare it a formal colony. So that's good stuff. I'm going to put you on pause. We'll pass turn, get our forces sort of deployed, in position, ready for a summer campaign. So see you on the other side in late May. Okay, welcome back. It is late May, and all quiet on the Western Front. A very, very sedate, almost spookily quiet start to the war. No Austrian moves again. They've made no incursions into our territory. No actions of any kind. So the first month of the war is a phony war, if ever there was one. We've now begun to get our forces in place. We've got Mehmed Ali is now in Kosovo. We're going to hold him in position. We're going to hold Ahmed Pasha in Zvornik, and Hussein Avni is going to hold tight. Neither Hussein Avni nor Ahmed Pasha are actually activated, so we're going to hold them in place. We are going to hold, even though Mehmed Ali's force is not in bad shape, he's got a lot of fighting and marching ahead. So it makes sense that when we kind of step off, that his force is in an optimal kind of shape, the best shape that it can be. He has just conducted a march from Salonika, admittedly over a month, but there was some rather tricky weather over northern Bulgaria and some parts of the Balkans. I think Skopje, there was heavy rainfall. His troops marched through that, so it slowed them down significantly. In the east, we've got 2 commands activated. I think what we're going to do to begin with is a defensive measure. Get our forces in place. We're going to secure the south bank of the Danube. So let's activate Bayezid Pasha. He's going to march north to Constanta. Mukhtar Pasha, we're going to march him north to Plevna. And 6 days for Abdul Karim Nadir. 20 days. I guess we'll keep it at 6 days then, unless we get him to Varna. How long to Varna? No, let's just get him as far north as because his force has done a lot of marching. It's a bit disorganized and disheveled. There is a kind of relationship, by the way, between how long it takes a force to march a location and its level of organization. As its organization kind of declines, correspondingly, it takes much longer to march. Well, he's only 6 days, so he's already some way into kind of Rumelia anyway. After 6 days, he's going to get six or 7 days, 8 days, however long. It's 14 days, so however long to 8 days to sit tight in Rumelia. And that gives his kind of his boys a bit of time to kind of get themselves squared away. That's pretty much it. Yeah, very, very quiet start to the war. Let's check our kind of mounted divisions that are being constructed. Yeah, it's going to take a bit of time. These are specialist units, so they require some time for training. They're not just drafted soldiers. In addition to all the things that regular infantry have to learn, they also have to learn, I guess, how to use some kind of specialized equipment. So it'll take a bit of time. We've got Rita Pasha in Kars. Let's give him command of the garrison. There we go, that'll do. Now, state revenue's good. One thing that I have done, I've already done the economic admin for the turn, is that we're going to start bulk buying gold now. The reason being is we've got healthy amounts of private capital coming in. We're going to offer a premium for 10 units of gold per turn for the United States. The United States is hand over fist the biggest exporter of gold. We're already trying to draw, I think, a couple of units per turn from Mexico. We might stick a premium on that. So it's basically, again, a mechanism to convert significant amount. I thought we did. Oh, we have. Oh, no, okay, not Mexico. Let's double check. It's a mechanism to convert private capital into state revenue, and we want to do that because we are at war. We want to try and make sure we've got a lot of state, even if it incurs 1% inflation or maybe 2%, that's okay. So we're getting 2 units from Colombia and Chile, okay, respectively. Let's see what's available in Colombia. So we'll increase it to 4 units. Actually 5. And then let's check Chile. We'll offer a premium for Chile's as well. So that, I mean, if we managed to get the premium. Obviously, that'll be a lot. I mean, that'll be something like 700-800 private revenue kind of vanished. You know, sort of, if you like, converted into a commodity, which in turn drip feeds into kind of state revenue. Let's check conversion on those. So 40% set for gold. We're going to reduce that because we don't want to convert the gold back into private revenue. That'd be pointless. So we're going to try and minimize the availability of gold, but that's like 10%. So the gold we get, there you go, 5%. It'll mostly be converted. In fact, it'll overwhelmingly be converted. I think we've already set that for diamonds anyway. It's a 50%. Okay, I thought it was... Well, diamonds is different because diamonds is a commodity that we don't actually import. So that's fine. 50% is fine. So half of the diamonds we get per turn. And per turn we get 6 units of diamonds per turn. Which is good. 5 of those will be sold in the national market. 2 conversion, which is rather curious, but okay, fine. Okay, and I think what we'll do, it's late May, so early June is going to be when we begin the campaign. So we're going to give them another fortnight to see what moves they make. They've not invaded our provinces, but they have declared war on us. So as far as they're concerned, they just want to be in a state of war with us. They're not looking to kind of press anything militarily. I'm just checking through the kind of our territories. I have read the reports, but just to see if there's any visual cues of any sort of problems. There don't appear to be. So we've got Ahmed Ayub Pasha. 15 days to the Rao line completes. Oh, I'll tell you what, we'll wait for the Rao line to complete. We'll separate him from the Marine Brigade, the 3rd Marines, and we'll strategically redeploy him on the Rao lines to Constantinople. We'll give him a command of an Imperial Guard corps in one of these armies. And we've got a kind of professional staff command since the end of the last war. We've only got a lot of kind of reform. So what I'm actually going to do is name our armies for the first time, give them proper kind of names. Okay. We'll use the kind of Hindu numerals because they were popularized during this time. You even see Russian units in the Russo-Japanese War have got kind of these... Urdu. There we go. First army. Second army, I think, will be Hussein Avni's force. Third army is going to be Abdul Karim Nadir. Fourth army will Bayezid. Fifth will be Ahmed Pasha. I'm trying to kind of roughly do it based on when I think the armies were formed. That said, the formations within each army have been switched around at different times, and then the 6th army. Good. So it's a kind of an easier way to kind of quickly cross-reference the forces, second, first, third, and so on and so forth. Good. Okay. We're going to give it another fortnight to get our forces into place. We are moving to secure the south bank of the Danube, which means we have set our forces that are doing that to an offensive posture. So if the Austrians do try and make a kind of sortie or an incursion to besiege Constanta, for example, they will be countered. We'll be looking to kind of clear the area. I don't think they will be for some reason. They don't have substantial forces. I mean, for the forces that we can see, they've got an army corps and Alberton Ostrich, 2 army corps by the looks of it. Actually, his forces comprised of a Landstrom Brigade, which is like a division, partisans, which are just armed civilians from the last war, I guess, and something else, right part? There might be partisans also. I'm not sure. relatively on a strength force then. I mean, that's going to be about probably 50,000, 60,000 men maybe. A regular formation, the character which we know nothing about, except that I think that denotes brigade size force, or maybe division. It might be division size. And then in Montenegro, there is one army corps, there's a reserve army corps at Kataro, and there's a remainder of von Glabens. He's a new commander, corps, which is a light infantry corps plus siege artillery regiment. That's interesting. Yeah, so we don't have access to light infantry. Slightly questionable because the Ottomans were pretty renowned for kind of light infantry tactics, but that is a specialization that a lot of other sort of countries have. I think most European powers can build light formations. We can't at this stage. I'm not sure if we ever will be able to, but that's okay. That's the military moves pretty much made. Let's check development of Q8 real quick. Still sitting at 42%. That's to be expected. Now, one thing that has happened is we received a report that our mission in Hobyo was destroyed. I think that the Somali kind of sort of forces are in this kind of terra incognita in the interior. So we're going to move the 4th Marine Brigade down. It's 8 days, and hopefully this won't result in kind of the loss of all of these colonial cards that are being played in this region. Military controls at 82%. Hopefully they should get there in kind of in enough time to kind of reverse that, and then I think we're going to have the whole position at Hobyo. Let's have a look at what we've got up here. What we might actually do then is third column. So this is the 3rd Marine Brigade. Okay. And we'll land this force in Busaso. Yeah, 9 days, good stuff. That should mean that we have forces along the entire Somali coastline to kind of hold down the area and provide security for the area. We could drive up penetration. The main problem we have is that we're sitting at 28%, the Italians at 37%, so we need to get to sort of, we need to atrophy the Italian position in Somalia proper. We're tying with the Italians in Hobyo. Is that Hobyo? Yeah. And then in Busaso, they're at 25, we're at 27%, so we're getting there. We've got two full private capital, so whilst I have done economic admin, there is one structure that I want to build, and that is a machine parts factory. We have been self-sufficient for machine parts, but upgrading iron mines, which we've done recently, has meant that we consume more machine parts, because it means that we're essentially mechanizing iron mines. We've also upgraded one of our kind of diamond mines, which is very inefficient still, but nevertheless, it still consumes machine parts. So to that end, we are going to build a machines part factory. We've got enough manufactured goods and everything we need to do that. Let's have a look. Mechanical parts. Where do we build it? That's the question. I think probably Salonika. Let's just check out other locations. I tell you what, we're not going to build it in Salonika, only because we've already got a machine parts factory there, and we want to kind of, we don't want to be in a position where, we can't build any more in Smyrna anyway. Let's check Sinop. We're going to build it in Sinop. Okay, good. It's a big dip off in steel, but that should be fine. Yeah, we don't want to be in a position where if we have like lots of machine parts, or we have kind of too much of one commodity being produced, unless it's the capital, of course, being produced in one location, because if it becomes besieged or something like that, it creates real problems in the economy. If it's besieged and that we can't get access to that resource, that could end up constituting something like half of our machine parts. In fact, it would. It would be 2/3 of our machine parts production would be located in one site. And if that was besieged even by partisans, that wouldn't be a smart move. You know, we wouldn't have access to that resource, and we'd have to import a huge amount of machine parts. So that puts private capital down. State revenue is good. We sent a couple of kind of fortress divisions to Sarajevo. We also want to be mindful that if we send forces away from the capital or away from the sort of the center of power, that we want to be able to replace those forces, so that we always have a reserve at the center. And if, you know, some surprise happened, France declared war, they already have forces en route, they land in Constantinople. Constantinople, of course, we've just sent some of its garrison to Sarajevo. So let's build a fortress, build a couple of fortress divisions. And I think we'll also build emplaced artillery. What's that going to cost us? That's going to cost us a lot of manufactured goods, so we won't do that this turn. We'll hold off on that. We'll build one more fortress division, I think. There we go. Excellent, good stuff. Right, that is everything then for late May. I've got to put you on pause. It might be quite a long video this to kind of kick the war off, because it's a very slow start, and I can imagine it'd be rather boring to just sort of watch nothing happen for 3 or 4 turns. So maybe make it a bit of a bumper episode. I don't think I've done that for a while. We'll see how we get on. But yeah, put you on pause past turn. We're in late May, so we'll see you on the other side in early June. Okay, welcome back then. It is early June. And we have seen the first Austrian moves. No engagements with the Austrians this turn, but they have now begun to achieve force concentration. There is a kind of rational, you know, sort of there's a logic to what they're doing. So they've now compiled a pretty decent stack in Wallachia. This is probably about 80 to 100,000 men on the north bank of the Danube, and in the west, we've seen the appearance of a new force under von Hinkelstein has marched and taken Bihać. So they have now invaded our territory. They control a coal mine at that. Danube, the Dalmatian coastline remains unchanged. But yeah, so we've got basically an army under Albrecht. We know Albrecht. He's a commander that we're familiar with. Not terribly good commander, from what I recall. And in the west, at Bihać, we've got von Hinkelstein. He's new. We've not had to deal with him before, and I suspect we will be very soon. Under him is a corps under Karl Ferdinand also. And then von Gablens, who I think also is a new player that we haven't seen yet. Ludwig Wilhelm von Gablens. Okay, it's time to begin our campaign. So it's the beginning of June. We've got many months still of good weather, or we've got now until the end of September. So we're going to sort of send the first army into. Actually, we're going to set to assault. We want to assault Montenegro, and then push all the way through to Cateru. 6 days. That's 11. He receives support in Montenegro from the 5th Army under Ahmed Pasha, and then at Cateru he gets support from Hussein Avni. We're going to set Hussein Avni to an offensive posture in case he's attacked. I mean, that sounds counterintuitive, but we don't want an Austrian force to move into Sarajevo and just kind of sit there. We actually want any force that attempts to move into Sarajevo, he's going to move to engage them, sort of thing. So his force is well rested. It's been in Sarajevo since the beginning of the war, and before that. His force is in good shape, weather's decent, so yeah, he will look to engage and take the fight to any kind of... there's a chance, I think, that von Hinkelstein will look to move, possibly with support from von Gablens, into Sarajevo. He will have support also from the south, from the 5th Army. And in the east, we are also going to begin to make a move. We're going to conduct an offensive across the Danube with 2 armies. So 2 days. He gets there a little bit beforehand. No, that's okay. So 2 days, then 5. And Abdelkrim Nadir's force is still a little bit, so it's 10 days march. You can't get directly there. 6 days. 12. So we're going to move the 3rd Army, Abdelkrim Nadir, up to Constanta. as a kind of reserve, and then we're going to sort of he'll bring up the rears kind of thing. But now they have force concentration. Let's bring the fight to them. They've got the forces in place. We're going to hit them with 2 armies. We've got the concentration that we need now to go onto the offensive. So the hope here is we kind of catch them flat-footed before they really launch their own offensive. Good aggressive strategist. I mean, it will take him 6 days to get to Montenegro, so that should be in sort of a good time. Excellent. That's it. Just going to check the east. In fact, let's just check our kind of not Ministry of Industry and Commerce, War Ministry. So the guns are finished then. What we are going to do is build some spare parts for ships. 36. And we've got parts available for heavy ships. Good. Okay. Development has not increased in Q8. I did check that. It's still sitting at 42%. The last rail line has been completed now. Well, in terms of the continuous rail line, we have got regional branches that are going off to facilitate various RGOs, opium plantations and coffee plantations. But we now have continuous rail access all the way from Aden to, well, as far north as Sarajevo. So, and Bihac once we take it back. Let's get Ahmed Ayub north then. Where do we want him? I think we'll get him in Bayezid Pasha's force. Yeah, we will. Let's get him strategically redeployed to Plevna, I think. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, there we go. So he used rail lines to strategically redeploy north. Good stuff. We managed to pull in 11 units of gold in the last fortnight from the United States. I think mostly 10 units from the United States, 1 unit from Colombia. Demand is being met on the assets balance. So that will begin conversion and will begin to top up our state money fairly significantly. And we're 1 turn away from formal colonial status, I believe. Yeah, 1 turn. So check this. Check the difference that it will make. Because we will suddenly absorb all of the kind of wealth of the various tribes, whatever kind of apparatus exists in the Yemen. Obviously, we militarily occupy the region pretty much, but the administration will become ours. We'll begin the construction of a kind of governor's residence and this sort of thing. And he basically will become the de facto sort of ruler of this region. Well, we'll rule through him. So that will result in a big influx of wealth, I'd imagine. Private capital and wealth into the state exchequer, which would be good. And some commodities also, no doubt. Yeah, good run of exports. We sold a colossal amount of dyes in the last term. I mean, just unbelievably large amounts. I think it's the most we've sold. So 15 plus 5 plus 6 plus 25 plus 2 units. Quite, you know, really something. Yeah, good round economically. Strong exports. And despite the fact we imported 11 units of gold, we didn't really notice it in terms of... you know, didn't eat into our private capital. We imported 11 units of gold, and we still, you know, yeah, still in pretty good shape. Let's check these. One of the reasons we also always want to make sure we have garrison forces is because when we look at the army, we want to kind of see it in 2 ways. One, obviously, the principal focus of our army, and it has been the focus for the last 18 years, is to increase its warfighting capacity. And we have increased the warfighting capacity of the Ottoman army, I think, certainly, in the last 18 years. The other thing that we've never really done with the army is to have it as a deterrent. Having a really significantly high combat power relative to other powers will function as a deterrent. That will be factored in. So combat power parity is slightly better than it was. A lot of that also reflects the fact that as our forces stop marching and they get some rest, they improve their organization, their combat power increases, which is good. So we tend to get slightly better kind of... a better sort of force parity. Just kind of scrolling around. Now, we did have some engagements. We had some combat. So, that was the landing of, I think it was the 3rd Marine Brigade. That was successful. So we can see the Somalis had a force as native levy line infantry. 2,000 men, about a quarter of those were lost. Very cool kind of unit card there. Yeah, so the Marines kind of gave them a drubbing. We didn't suffer any casualties, so I guess they just used their firepower to kind of deal them some fairly hefty casualties. They fell back. They are still in the region, so we've kept it's the 4th Marine Brigade, not the 3rd, I beg your pardon. So we get the 4th Marine Brigade in place, and we'll kind of mop up and in the next fortnight look to push them out of Io. Okay, that's pretty much it. We've got a past turn then. We're in early June, so we will pick up on the other side in late June, and we could probably expect, I would have thought, some fairly significant action on the southern part of the Dalmatian coast, probably an opening engagement in Montenegro. The First Army will assault the capital of Montenegro, which name escapes me, I can't see it at the moment, and then we'll move on to assault Katara also. It should be the case that you can bag both of these. What we'll do is release some Bashi bazooks behind him from Pristina, and then we'll move him behind him just to kind of secure the interior, I think. And we might even actually build a small garrison force in Pristina to replace it. Let's have a look. Now, Pristina has okay, let's put a garrison force in Adrianople. And we'll move the garrison force by rail then to Pristina. We'll use the Bashi bazooks as kind of irregular paramilitaries, pick up the rear. The Bashi bazooks have, for the most part, been phased out. We still have a few units of Bashi bazooks. They don't even look like Bashi bazooks anymore. They sort of look, they have a very European kind of look to them. The old-fashioned, very colourful uniform now has been replaced by something that just looks like kind of partisan paramilitary civilian gear, I suppose. We've actually got a proper fortress division in Tirana. We'll keep that in place. But yeah, that's it for this turn. We've got a pass turn, and yeah, we'll see you on the other side then in late June. Okay, welcome back. It is late June then, and our summer campaign against the Austrian Empire begins in earnest. And I'd imagine that our soldiers, as they kind of step off, at the beginning of the summer in warm, gentle, clement weather, have probably got good reason to feel confident. They are marching with an army that is very seasoned. It's seen many victories against the Austrians in the past. It's fought many actions against the Austrians. It's occupied Vienna. It's defeated the Russians in the field. So it's an army of experienced officers, senior NCOs that might have fought multiple campaigns. Men in their late 30s, early 40s will have seen many sizable battles. Who knows? One or two of them, 18 years ago, or however many years, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago, maybe even stood at Adrianople with Rita Pasha's force as the Russians came hurtling down through Silistria, and they would have been young men, and so the very young soldiers that have joined our ranks over the last couple of years have probably got good reason to feel confident. They're going into battle with grizzled, seasoned veterans and an army that has got a proven track record, and we have poured the resources of the Ottoman Empire principally into modernizing and expanding our army. I mean, all of the diamonds that we've kind of, secured from the Persian Gulf, from our mines and from trading with natives, all of the gold we've imported from the Americas, we have poured into research and development to make sure that our army has all of the best weapons that are available at this time. Our army has never been better in terms of parity with a Western European army than it is now, really, at least not since the height of our empire. So, how did we do in the opening engagements with Austria in late June 1868? First engagement then is at Wallachia. You will remember that on day 2, the 5th Army under Ahmed Muta Pasha was set to arrive in Bucharest. He does so. Theatre command falls to Bayezid. That makes sense. He's more experienced. He's got greater seniority. We bring about just under 200,000 men to the field. I think that probably means that by then Abdulkarim Nadir is also. They can also draw on his force. Goes up against 150,000 Austrians led by Albert von Ostrich, and yeah, I mean, it is an absolute drubbing of the Austrians. It's vintage stuff. It's the kind of thing that Omar Pasha would have been proud of, 75,000 casualties inflicted. We take 20,000 plus we take 9,600 casualties. We destroy 6 elements. 6 line infantry regiments are completely annihilated in that engagement, and that is heartening stuff to see. Yeah, really, really good stuff. One thing to remember also is that of this force, 24 regiments are guard regiments. You'll remember that at one point that we wanted to expand the army, but we also wanted to really expand the guard component of our army so that each command had this kind of core, this elite core to it, you know, to kind of replicate in some way, in spirit, the kind of, you know, the way that the Janissaries impacted the Ottoman army. That's really paid dividends, because this, you know, these guys, they're really, really disciplined. These are elite infantry formations, and I mean, it's like a, you know, it's like a hot knife through butter. Absolutely smashes the Austrian army in the opening engagement of the war. That's really, really heartening. Second engagement in terms of our reports then, also on day 2, that is a continued engagement at Herbaio, where the 4th Marine Brigade engages the native levies. It's a victory, of course, which is really good to see. We inflict another 500 casualties. We do take some casualties, however, this time we take 102 casualties. It's obviously, you know, compared to what's going on in Europe, it's small stuff, but it is stuff that needs to be done, and that's good to see. The natives seem to have fallen back, so I'm guessing they've fallen back into this kind of terra incognita. We don't lose any of the colonial cards that are being played. That's good to see. Trade post is still going in, colonial merchants. What we do want to do, however, is rebuild the mission that we lost. So we're going to do that now, if we can. Do we have access to the mission at the moment? I don't think we do. No, we don't. So I think we played all the missions, so we'll have to wait for some to become available. That's okay. So security is restored on the Somali coast. Good to see. Happy with that. Second engagement then is in Montenegro. That's on day 6. Yeah, so he's on schedule. That's when Mehmed Ali is due to arrive, and he's going up against one army corps, 26,000 men. He brings, you know, with the support from Ahmed Pasha. Yeah, I mean, it's in the bag. It's a comfortable victory. It looks like the Austrian corps breaks contact. They suffer 4,200 casualties. We suffer 1,800. Nice. Nice, cheaply done. It looks like Mehmed Ali does what he's meant to do. He assaults the town, immediately presses onto Cattaro. There is no further engagement at Cattaro, so I think what has happened is the Austrian forces have simply fallen back to Spalato and have folded in. We can see now that there are, yeah, so there's a light infantry corps also there, which I think is inside the structure, which we can't see. The 2 army corps, a reserve corps plus a regular corps, have fallen back. That's going to make Spalato a more serious fight, at least because that receives support from Hinkelstein to the north in Bihac. So, yeah, that's interesting. How are we going to play this? We'll have a think on that. We'll reach for the rest of the reports. Next engagement then is an Austrian attempt to recover the situation in Wallachia. A second battle at Bucharest takes place. And, yeah, lovely stuff. We destroyed 2 regiments outright, inflict another 85,000 casualties. Good God. Absolutely devastate them. We only suffer 20,000 casualties. We take 3,200 prisoners. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. We bring 1,000 guns to this against their 600. So nice bit of artillery. Nice sort of artillery superiority there. But yeah, absolutely smashed them. Good to see. Really, really good to see. In terms of other engagements, that is it. We scored 3 national morale points for that. Bear in mind that the Austrians will have a high national morale because they took Rome. So they had a favourable peace there at 130. We're not playing the national morale game with this war. We're going to take Vienna, so we don't really care what their national morale is now, frankly. So yeah, really, really good stuff. Nice. Now, the other news is that we have absorbed Aden into the Austrian Empire, and look at our state revenue. Where were we at? 104, 105? We're now 1,232. So yeah, the combined wealth of the kind of elites of this region was substantial. That is absorbed into our exchequer. That becomes the property of the Ottoman Empire. And yeah, it's significant. I mean, probably a lot of it would have been the private wealth of our merchants who for 18 years have been trading buying opium and coffee and this kind of thing. We don't need to buy it off anyone now. This region is ours. We're building coffee plantations, opium plantations, and we're taking the stuff ourselves. And we're doing it at scale as well. So yeah, really, really good. Yeah, we as well as state revenue, we bring in a lot of private capital, so the private wealth of this region is substantial, plus a huge amount of commodities, coffee and opium, of course, which is kind of sitting in their inventory. So yeah, really good. Good round, really, really good round. A good start to the war. What are we? Late June. I think we can squeeze another turn in. Should we squeeze another turn in? Make a bit of a bumper episode. So we'll kind of push on then to the beginning of July. Ahmed Pasha then, the 5th Army is not activated. He's 9 days from Sarajevo. 7 days. 5 days. 6 days. Right, let's bring the 5th Army up to Sava. That can provide support at Bihać. And we're going to move the 1st Army up to Spalato. We are going to set... it can't move directly. That's interesting. Blocked possibly by something. Maybe we could do a switch. No, I want Mehmed Ali's kind of... I want his offensive. Look at that, 7. That's really good. That's crazy good. Yeah, I want his kind of... Oh, he can move now. Why is it that a minute ago he couldn't move? Directly to Spalato. Okay, 7 days then to Spalato. He will conduct an assault on a town. It's not fortified. He is going to be going up against a more substantial force that is supported. He does receive support from Hussein Avni, however. So 7 days. Just double check. Ahmed Pasha, 9. Nah, that's fine. We'll move him up to Sava. Army Group West then is developing really nicely. Really, really good start. We've nailed Montenegro and Kato comfortably. Let's move the Bashi Bazouk 6 days. We'll set them to retreat if engaged. And they're designed to hold down Montenegro. You're used to seeing an Ottoman flag over Montenegro. That region we intend to incorporate into the empire. That'll be the first time that we would have acquired territory through warfare. I mean, we've acquired colonial territory, but that'll be the first time that we forcefully acquired territory in this campaign so far. All 3 of the commands in Army Group East are activated. Let's set... didn't arrive. I wanted to try the strategic redeployment thing, because I know that in other... Yeah, it didn't happen. I know that in other AGO games, it is a feature where instead of dragging, you could just strategically redeploy, and they automatically use railways commanders to redeploy. But I don't know. He is still set to strategically redeploy. Let's just leave him for a couple of turns and see what happens, right? This leader can actively lead units this turn. Do we have to put move by rail on, perhaps? Let's do that. Okay, we'll just leave it, see what happens. I thought it would have... I don't think it would take more than 2 weeks to get a commander and a staff command to Plevna by train, to tell you the truth, from Aden. Anyway. Yeah, in the east then, so we've got Abdul Karim set to an offensive posture. We're going to hold him tight in Constanta for the time being. Yeah, they've done exactly what we thought they were going to do. They've moved north into Moldavia. And we can't chase them. That is actually a large Austrian force, isn't it? A really large Austrian force. Where is it? I'm trying to fathom where it is. It's not in Constanta. It's in Bessarabia. I didn't realise they had military access to Russia. Okay. Well, that's not terribly good. Russians have rail lines going to Sevastopol. Hmm. Yeah, the Russians are pushing railways south, sure enough. There's not much we can do about that. Let's keep Abdul Karim Nadir in place for the time being. I think we'll set him to a defensive posture, hold at all costs. And let's conduct an assault on Bucharest. Using both commands. We're not moving anywhere, so we're going to hold position. That should both assault Bucharest and clear the district. And if the Austrians try to press south again, I think they'll get a bloody nose. I mean, look at their army. It's received fairly heavy casualties. They have more substantial forces. It's surprising they have forces in Russian territory. I mean, why do they have military access? Who is there? Calvin Osberg. Okay. Yeah, Russia provides them military access. Ooh, okay. We'll keep that in mind. Good start to the Eastern campaign as well. So we need to clear out Bucharest. We need to keep Abdul Karim Nadir back to counter any moves from Bessarabia. It's irritating that they can now hide forces in Russia. We might consider kind of declaring war on Romania. We've got a diplomat to do it. Let's check our diplomatic relations really quickly with the major organised powers. It's gone down a little bit with Britain, gone up with France. Everyone else took a medium to medium bad. Good relations with Zanzibar, which is a tribal society in Croatia. Russia has an infringement casus belli against Croatia as well. That's interesting. They provide us with military access and supply. Okay, very good. Yeah, so we clear out. We're going to clear out kind of Bucharest, I think, for kind of late June. Hold position in Constanza and continue the Dalmatian campaign up to Spalato. I think this is going to be a sizable engagement. This is going to be the biggest engagement of the kind of Western Theatre Command. I think Hussein Avni will be the senior commander for that. I would have thought. But Mehmet Ali will be giving a really, really nice offensive bonus to that. 7 is really good. I think that's what kind of Omar Pasha was pretty much at the end of his life. 6 days for Ahmed Pasha to Sava. Yeah, good stuff. That's really good. Now, in terms of the state wealth that we've acquired, we're going to sit on that a little bit. We're not going to kind of squander that. We've completed some guns. Let's separate this into two separate kind of troops. Okay, so one we're going to send to Erzurum by train, and that'll be folded into the 7th Army that we're going to be constructing in the east. 2 batteries will be sent to the arsenal in Adrianople and will be distributed to commands appropriately. What happened? Okay, good. Okay, we got appropriate military control over Solum. Good stuff. The fleet is in Aden. I think weather should have cleared up in the Red Sea by now. 22 days to Constantinople. No Austrian shipping in the Mediterranean maritime box. That's good. Okay, good stuff. Really, really good start to the campaign. Really happy with that. There was a little bit of underlying anxiety because I kind of thought, you know, oh god, it looks so good on the surface of it, you know, in terms of kind of combat parity. Obviously, it's climbed a little bit for us now. I thought that, you know, what is it? What's the secret? What's the angle? I thought that maybe Austria had developed maybe some kind of technique, yeah, some kind of sort of technology that would give them some profound edge on in the field that I'm not recognizing, but maybe the AI kind of factors it or something like that. It doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, these opening engagements are like, I mean, that was an absolute like catastrophe for the Austrians. They've suffered like, you know, 140, 150,000 casualties in Romania. You know, in the opening engagements. Astonishing, absolutely staggering defeat. And our loss is relatively light. You know, really, really, really good stuff. I mean, our army really is feeling like a serious force now. I mean, yeah, 1870 to 1890, they got the latest kit. Can't see the Austrians stopping us really at this rate. As long as we deploy our forces sensibly, we keep them in a configuration where they can support each other. I think this war is ours for the taking. You know, famous last words. But I really can't see how they're going to pull it off, unless one of these new commanders is some kind of genius, of course, von Gablenz or von Hinkelstein. I don't know much about Austrian military history. I've not heard of either of those commanders. Doesn't mean to say they're not very good, you know. Okay, economic administration has been set anyway. Let's check Q8 really quickly for development. 42%, absolutely nothing. I'd say what we need to do is to start driving up the penetration of Hejaz. The Hejaz is the next target for colony status, really. It's not quite there yet. So we got military pacification. That's the one that gives us 2%. So we got 30, 37, 40 here, 55 in the capital, 40, 37. And that's Sana. We don't need Sana done. So in Tabuk, then I guess we'll try and conduct a pacification campaign. We'll know within one turn whether it's come off, so I have to remember next turn to check that. And if it has, it'll run through for 12 turns, give us another 2%, bump up to sort of 40. We're close now. We are close to Hejaz. I mean, average colonial penetration is already over 40%. We might have to actually declare war on the Hejaz tribal society that controls the region around the Medina. Why is the Ministry of Colonial Affairs not opening? We might have to do that to basically clear this area out. So average penetration at Hejaz is 45. 52 in Yemen. Let's really quickly check Zanzibar. So 49. Exploration party finishes in 2 turns. So in a month's time, we could move for formal colonial status for Zanzibar. Now, there are other powers that have some... No, in fact, they can't contest it because it's already protectorate. They can't lay a stake. It's already a halfway house. It's already halfway in the bag. So if they wanted to lay a stake, they'd have had to have done it when we moved for protectorate status. So Zanzibar is not far off getting moved into into formal colonial status. Let's begin the construction of rail lines in Zanzibar. We can't do any more infrastructure development for the time being. So we've got an anchorage here. Let's upgrade this to a coaling station. We will also do that in Q8. Maybe a harbour extension also in Qatar. I'm just thinking about ways if we can force some development to the region. Yeah, still good. So workers 1, 21 peasants, 10 serviles is what we have in Qatar. 14 peasants, 10 serviles. It's units, I guess. I don't know what it means, 10,000 or what. 11 workers in Q8, 32 peasants, 27 serviles. Okay. So a bit of infrastructure development might kind of have the effect of, yeah, bumping up. We'll see what happens before we end up doing the same in Dubai, in Qatar and Q8. We've got railroads going in Qatar, 135 days still. Yeah. Good stuff. That's all the moves we've made. I have set economic admin, I think, for the turn. Let me just double check, make sure everything's looking good. Loads of oil. We're drilling oil now. 24 units of gold. Nice. Coffee, 20 units of coffee. Where's our opium setting up? Opium's 30 units. Let's check opium consumption. I can never, ever, ever see opium. There. 2 units per turn at 30. That's good. Let's check what we've got distribution set to. I guess it's an organic resource, isn't it? So structures production yields 14 units. That's probably going to dramatically increase. Yeah, and 12 basically. That's set to 80%. Maximum distribution. Incidentally, there are no ill effects. You don't have any kind of ill effects for selling opium on your domestic market. It's treated as a commodity like alcohol or, I guess, any other kind of drug. So you never feel kind of reluctant to sort of sell it domestically. Yeah, so that's good. So we're making 2 units per turn. Plus, let's see what we've got going on in Yemen. So, opium, railroads, 60 days, 25 days. Coffee, nice. So coffee, and then opium and Sana, plus 180 days. Opium plantations are not built yet. Yeah, plus rail lines going in Zanzibar. This is going to be good. Let's see what infrastructure we can put in. So anchorage upgrade, I guess. These are very cheap structures, by the way. Great. Let's check technology really quickly. So we've got we're funding reserve formations. We've got 3 lines that we're directly funding from the Exchequer. Steamship of the line, reserve formations. When complete, that's our last army. Technology for a while, really, for the foreseeable. Steamship of the line is at 38. I say army, I mean, with the exception of artillery forces. Iron breechloaders at 17. Okay, good stuff. Once we've got reserve formations sort of in the bag, really, once we've got that through, we'll switch to probably iron ships or rifle guns, something like that. Okay, great stuff. I've got to put you on pause then. I've checked all the other reports. In any case, we'll put you on pause past turn. We're in late June, so we'll see you on the other side in early July. Okay, welcome back. We passed turn. We are in early July. And a month ago then, we stepped off on the beginning of our summer campaign. A lot of those young soldiers that have been recruited in, just the last year, I mean, they probably already feel like seasoned warriors. They've spent a month marching in the summer heat. They've seen great victories. And, well, it's been an interesting turn, put it that way. Okay, so first engagement then is the assault on Bucharest. It's successful. Very, very light losses. We take 8,000 casualties, inflict 8,000 prisoners, inflict 16,000 casualties. Bucharest is taken. quite easily in the bag. The second engagement, as it was happening, I was looking at it thinking that, you know, it's quite late at night here. It's like 1 a.m. I thought, oh, I'm obviously really tired. I'm not reading this properly. I was reading it properly. Yeah. So Austria has 981,000 men in Bucharest right now. Well, scratch nearly 200,000 off of that. That, I mean, it's a massive force. It's unreal. 60,000 horse, 4,188 guns against our 1,400 cannons. We suffer a defeat, a convincing defeat. I mean, we don't lose any national morale because we give a good account of ourselves. I mean, we destroy 3 elements. We lose 2 heavy cavalry regiments. We inflict, 189,000. We take, I think, what appears to be 82,000. So we inflict more than twice the, the casualties than we took. But it is a defeat. Our forces are, I mean, we're compelled to vacate the region. If they'd have stayed there, the force would have been decimated. And I mean, it's a 3-round action. Just look at the number of Austrian army corps. It goes on forever and ever. It's unbelievable. Look at these guns. I didn't see this. They have some kind of field artillery regiment. I've never seen guns like that. I reckon they've got steel. They've got steel breech loaders, I reckon. Interesting. And yeah, 4,000 of them. Brilliant. Yeah. Second round. Look at this cavalry. Look at this cavalry force. Cool uniform. Yeah, it's a massive force. I mean, it's alarming. Really alarming. Nearly 1 million men concentrated into one region, completely out of view, prior to it moving. It's really clever as well, because, I mean, like, this is probably the majority of their field command. It has to be. My arithmetic, I'm trying to figure it out. If they've got, say, 1.7 of our army, nearly twice the size of our army, and our teeth arms comprise 3 field commands of about 90,000 men apiece, it's about 500,000. If you add to that all of the small formations, the independent formations, the marine brigades and stuff like that, combined that gives you another 200,000, plus all the garrisons, some of which are quite larger. That's probably going to add another 400,000. I reckon they haven't got much in the way of garrisons, though. That's the thing. But they managed to basically muster most of their field command out of view in the part of the country where they don't have rail access. So they must have concentrated at Grossfaden, somewhere like that. They mustered the force out of view, and in the kind of west, I thought, and they had all this window dressing, all of these kind of forces broken up. I thought this is where their weight was going to be. I thought they're going to be trying to protect the gateway to Vienna. But yeah, this was kind of a scream. Their main force is in Transylvania, and is a fucking horror show of a force. Nearly 1 million men conducts, I'm guessing, a forced march through multiple tiles, slams into Bucharest in the immediate aftermath of our assault on it, although our assault was fairly comfortably done, so I don't think we didn't suffer heavy casualties or anything. And yeah, just by sheer weight of numbers, I mean, it's not good. This is not good at all. That's just on Bucharest. The right flank of that force is an army of about, 80 to 100,000 men. In Drobeta, which can now move into Augusta, Sofia. So they could theoretically pinch the rear off. We can't fall back to Bucharest on that basis. We could get in trouble if we do that. Yeah, it's very, very sobering kind of opening. In terms of further actions, our engagement at Spalato, which we actually get a national morale point. We don't lose a national morale point for the Bucharest defeat. We gave a good account of ourselves. Our forces have fallen back in good order across the river. The forces are intact, so that's good. We inflict a sizable defeat at Spalato against the combined Austrian force. almost force parity. They're about 200,000 men. This is Hinkelstein then. Yeah, he's actually not a bad commander. He's one of the better Austrian commanders that we've seen so far. He's got a couple of 2 stars under him. Karl Ferdinand von Ostrich, Ludwig Wilhelm von Gablans, and he's good as well. Gablans is strategic 4, offensive 4, so he's got a good aggressive 2-star under him. And Ferdinand von Ostrich is not bad actually. I mean, he started off. We've seen him before, but we've seen him a couple of years ago. He's probably been fighting in Italy, and he's got a bit of experience now. It's going to be a tougher war, a much harder war than I imagined. Especially after the kind of heady opening engagements that maybe, I was kind of thinking, God, it doesn't even feel like we're fighting a European army. I feel like we're fighting sort of natives or something. It's bonkers. But yeah, I mean, the Austrians have made a really good move here. We could be in real. I mean, we've been here before. To be clear, we've been in a situation before where the Austrians have have concentrated disturbingly large numbers of forces on the north bank of the Danube. They've not been good at exploiting that. One of the reasons being it's a difficult situation for them, because an army of 900,000 men, if that army now, which is what I would have an instinct to do, were to march across the Danube, it couldn't be set to assault posture because it'd have to bypass the fortress. So it'd simply have to march to Constantinople. Because it's an army that's that large, it doesn't matter. You can have all the supply wagons in the world. Within a fortnight, those supply wagons are going to be empty. So by the time it gets to, maybe it stops at Adrianople, it gets that far, and it is high summer, that could get to Constantinople. It's going to be out of supplies unless they then assault the city the very next turn. Which is doable. I mean, they could theoretically take Constantinople, in the next 14 days. And there's not much we could do about it, to be honest with you. The problem is their army would simply be out of supplies really very quickly. They would need to take, and this is what they've always come up against before, with an army that large, they're going to struggle even to supply that army from the depots they have at Kronstadt and Grosswarden. It's just such a big force. It's probably also, it's joined by the force from Bessarabia. I think it's a number of forces that kind of marched independently and kind of combined in Bucharest. Clausewitzian march divided, fight united sort of thing. But yeah, the problem they've always had before is when they've managed to get this devastatingly large force into place, they then have the supply dichotomy. Okay, they assault Bucharest next turn, they take that in the next 14 days, that opens the depot up there. How big is that? It's a reasonable depot, I think, in Bucharest. Supplies there. They then really have to take Constanta and Plevna to open up the way to Adrianople. They take Adrianople, they take Constantinople. That's the sensible way of doing it. That's the way of doing it that guarantees supply, basically. And with a force that large, you have to do that. It's difficult. If it's like an army of 200,000 men, you can conduct a Thunder Run. It's small enough that you can... The supply train with the army would keep that army supplied by about a month, something like that, with food and clothing and ammunition and whatnot. But an army of 1 million men, it's just going to eat through sort of food stocks too quickly. Yeah. And there's the possibility now that the right flank under Liechtenstein is going to move on Sofia. I mean, these fortresses are really going to have to kind of... we spent a lot of money building this system up. I mean, okay, they're dwarfed in size. The garrisons there is like, 51,000 men? But they are behind really large... I mean, these are really large modern fortresses with gun emplacements. So they're not going to be any kind of walkthrough, not walkover at all. In the first place, in the east, Army Group East is going to have to fall back, quite simply. We're going to have to get... Abu Karim's third army is not activated, but we're going to have to get him back down to Varna. That's 8 days. Can we make Rumelia? 16? Yeah, we'll do that. Both of these forces are activated. We'll set them to evade combat. They're going to have to fall back to Rumelia also. Why does it do that? 5 days. See, I don't think that Liechtenstein can get to Sofia in 5 days. Yeah, we'll do it. Let's try and get a continuous line. Let's get to Sofia in 5 days, get into the fortress. Because The one thing we've got going for us is they might have to divide their forces to siege, to siege their way through. On that basis, we can try, which is what we've done before. That's how we survived the Second War, really. They got the concentration, they broke the forces up to conduct sieges, and we could then defeat them in detail, conduct judicious counteroffensives, this kind of thing. 5 days is good enough. I think we can get to Sofia and get inside Sofia, which does carry, of course, obvious risks. Bayezid's force took the brunt of the damage. It's his cavalry division that lost 2 heavy cavalry regiments in that engagement. Yeah, the range casualties are fairly severe from their artillery. Their artillery is going to be a problem. That said, if we capture any of it, it'd be good. We're going to have to fall back and kind of attrition them. 8 days. It can't march directly. It has to be Remelia, really. Yeah, 8 days is okay. They withdrew in good order. Their commands remain intact. This changes the war, of course. We're still going to look to win and take Vienna. It's probably going to be a tougher fight, though. That said, right, this is the garrison force that we're going to send over. Reserve pool. Adrianople garrison is decidedly thin. Well, when these mounted divisions are complete, we're going to start sticking them on rails. They are going to have to head head west. What has Russia got? A lot of forces. Small units, however, for the most part. Yeah, this is going to be it's going to be tough. This. The other thing is, of course, is Army Group West, and I was kind of looking at this. We know, theoretically, where most of their field command is, and it's in Bucharest. It means that this window dressing, this screen, there can't be much behind it. And what I was looking at is Apat's 5th Army. He's in kind of... he moved into kind of Sava. He could conduct, I mean, if he was able to conduct, this is a gamble, it's a huge gamble. Because the instinct is, of course, in reality, if we're, is to try and bring one of our commands back kind of east. But the other possibility is there might not be very much between him and Vienna. And he is, I checked this, 9 days march from Vienna. 9 days uninterrupted march. That is if there isn't, because they could still have like 70, 80,000 men in kind of like Western Hungary, and that would be enough to stop him, or at least delay him, I mean, the really good offensive commander, Mehmed Ali, his force is disheveled, it's tired. It's just conducted a campaign up, most of the Dalmatian coastline. It's been marching for sort of 6 weeks almost. Well, I had a bit of a break at the end of May. And Hussein Afni, he's activated as well. We would have to leave Sarajevo open, but there is a large fortress there. He's 10 days. 10 days, 9. You know what I mean? That's nearly 200,000 men. It's a gamble, but this might be designed to put pressure in the east to draw forces off. What if we play them at their own game? It's like a game of chicken. Thunder runs to the capital. With 1 million men in the east, if in 10 days we can get to... Now, we can't assault it. The reason being is if we set our forces to assault, they will look to conduct assaults at each location en route. That could slow them down. And, of course, Budapest is fortified. What is now... But if we did that, we captured Vienna, we drive a stake into their heart again. Their national morale tanks, it sort of, this force is large, but also this force begins to fall back. Could we draw this force off the banks of the Danube? By it's a gamble. It's a really big gamble. I'm going to have to think about it, probably for a couple of days. But yeah, really sobering beginning, and it's whether or not we completely roll the dice with 2 field commands and an improvised thunder run to Vienna that wasn't really planned. I mean, we were going to make a move on to Vienna in the west, and we gamble on the fact that this is pretty much the lion's share of Austria's field army is located here, outside Bucharest. We'll have to see. I'll have to have a think about it. But yeah, it's either that or we play a bit more of a kind of careful game. We dispatch one command east. We give the 6th and the kind of 4th armies a month to really recover. Well, also have the Grenadier get some replacements up. They've got good lines of communication open from the capital, and we wear that force down. We defeat them in detail. We try and make another play across the Danube once we've inflicted, I don't know, 300,000-400,000 casualties on them, that kind of thing. There's a lot of artillery, and it looks like they've got more modern guns than we have. It looks like they've already got breech loaders in 68. Breech loads still artillery. So yeah, more modern artillery is going to result in more casualties. I mean, one thing that is noticeable about these opening engagements in a month is that these new weapons, these new firearms, the breech loaders, the artillery the Austrians have got, the casualties, it's much more serious. I mean, even compared to the wars that we've fought so far, it's crazy. I mean, how long would it take Mehmet Ali as well if he say marched 10 days? No, that's not going to happen, is it? He could try and punch through 6, 20 days. So there's this Hinkelstein with pretty much now a completely standard command. In fact, it's quite a large command. I mean, that's a large force. It's 4 army commands, but also under also here is an additional corps, plus a reserve corps, plus von Gablen's corps. So there's like 4, 5, there's like 7 army corps there. That's basically 2 armies, you know. It's like 170,000 men or something. Yeah, dangerous moment and a sobering opening to the campaign. You know, I was honestly thinking this was going to be a cakewalk, especially after the opening battles. It's not. Unless we can pull off some kind of crazy gamble, you know, sort of balls to the wall, nerves of steel stuff, march on Vienna. But if that doesn't come off, we could leave ourselves open to a very, very rapid defeat that would result in us probably losing Bosnia-Herzegovina. If Austria plays this well. And the AI is funny. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it plays really, really well. And then other times you kind of think, what are they doing? You know. And sometimes they create openings that they don't really, it doesn't exploit very well. Other times it catches you by surprise, like this. I mean, this force, it was well concealed. Its organization suggested it was concentrated beforehand, out of view. Which, yeah, really good move. They're kind of doing what we plan to do. They're trying to make their own Thunder Run, but with a much more substantial force. I mean, this force is as large as probably our entire army, you know. So if their army is 1.7, and that's pretty much our entire standing army, and by that, I don't just mean our teeth arms, our 6 field commands, but also the garrisons and all the independent commands. That's like as large as the entire Ottoman army. That force concentrated around Bucharest, besieging Bucharest. You know what I mean? And we have 3 field commands, all of which have sustained heavy casualties. So yeah. We'll leave it there and have a careful think. I mean, if there's something we've got going for us, we've got a lot of money in the exchequer, we've got good manpower. We are going to have to lay down a lot of garrisons, begin the construction of some forces. We're not going to build militia corps. We'll probably build a lot of sort of garrison forces in Constantinople very quickly. We might even pretty much empty out much of our manpower. We want to probably draft like 100,000 men as a kind of garrison for Constantinople very quickly. So if this does kind of, you know, go south quite literally, if it takes them maybe, you know, like a month these garrison forces, these fortress divisions, don't take very long to rustle up. We could even look to transfer some kind of garrison formations, maybe from the interior, from sort of Anatolia. We'll think on it anyway. But yeah, tough beginning, a tough beginning. You know, like mixed. You know, like from kind of easy money in the kind of opening fortnight to kind of, my God, what the hell is happening? So yeah, bruising kind of opening, and we'll see where it goes from here. But it's going to be a tough war. And yeah, I don't think it's going to be as hard as the second war, but I mean, I might be wrong though. You know, I might be wrong. It looks like the Austrians have got their act together, more so than we've seen before. I mean, their opening play also. The opening play was very conservative, very reserved, nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. You know, really probing attacks, weren't they? You know, probing attacks. Maneuvers, but the real force was concealed, was held back for a counter-attack, and that's been successful. So we'll leave it there, and I'll pick up here in early July, because I've not decided what to do, of course, yet, other than retreat Army Group East. So we'll pick up in early July, and yeah, decide where to go from here. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.